Hi, my name is Nikki Guy-Dixon, and I teach financial literacy for teens at Crossland High School. Today, we're going to take a look at how you take a Take Charge Today lesson and turn it into a 5E lesson. So let's get into this. Okay, so today we're going to take a look at engagement. And on the engagement piece, we're going to go into our Take Charge Today curriculum, online curriculum. We're going to log in. And I found this unit in introductory level. However, they have an advanced level and they have several resources that will help you to support your lesson, simulations, visual aids. So Take Charge Today is fully loaded. So the two sections from this particular lesson that I am going to download is Paycheck Basics, Lesson Plan, and Information Sheet. And I'm going to also download the PowerPoint presentation to convert this lesson into a 5E lesson plan template. So this is my template, and we're going to start with the engagement piece. So I've already gone in and actually filled this out, but I just want you to see how I did it. In bold, I put in my prior knowledge component, which is right here, because they do want to know what was the previous lesson taught. So I could have talked about the previous unit, but in here, I identified this as a new unit. And then here, I put my lesson objectives, and then I created an essential question, which I am going to put in Google Classroom so that my students can quickly answer it in about 5 to 7 minutes. And then I identified this as a level 2 depth of knowledge question. So I'm going to show you where I got that information from. So this is the lesson plan. And I know it's an introductory level because it says that it is here. Now, I could have talked about whatever unit I did previously, but for today's purposes, I just did not. And then here is where I copied the lesson objectives that I pasted into my lesson right here. My depth of knowledge question, or my essential question or warm-up question, that was located from the PowerPoint presentation on the second page of the PowerPoint presentation. There's also another question here, and I can also copy and paste that. It says, what's the best part about having your first job? So let's just say if I want to copy that and also put that in there, I might make that a first question, and I'm going to post that here. And so a big part of this is formatting to make sure that you keep this all the same so that it doesn't get too messy. And I'm actually going to change this because that first question is more of kind of sort of like a recall question versus a question where kids have to somewhat think about it a little bit. And you can Google how to determine your depth of level questions. And so now I have 2 essential questions. I've identified what depth of knowledge level they are. I have my objectives, and I've talked about my previous knowledge, and that is the engagement portion for this particular block. And I've also identified where you can find those questions. I can also do a pre-assessment. I can do a class discussion. It's multiple ways that you can do engagement. But for today, I decided to do Google Classroom questions that I would just put there. It's hybrid learning friendly, and that's how I will plop that in there. So I hope this helps. So now we're at the exploration piece of our 5E lesson plan. And I'm going back to the Take Charge Today lesson. So Take Charge Today really does do a lot with vocabulary terms to make sure students have a huge foundation. And this particular activity is an activity where the students can really examine the vocabulary that comes with Paycheck Basics. And I like the activity, so I'm going to make this my exploration activity. It tells me that it's going to take 15 minutes. It tells me what the material is. It gives me the hyperlink to the template that I can share with my students and some instructions here. So now in order for me to convert this to my 5E lesson plan, I'm going to go to my block and I am going to just section off some things here that I may want another teacher to know, that I may want to know, that administrator may want to know. So the approximate time, once again, will be 15 minutes. I pulled this directly from the lesson. I decided that I would like for my students to work together on this exploration piece in 2 to 3 scholars in a small group. The materials that I will need is the vocabulary template as well as the vocabulary terms. And for the sake of time, I didn't choose all of the vocabulary terms from that list. I just pulled together maybe like 4 vocabulary terms. And then I broke down the directions. Now, the directions actually came directly from the lesson, but I did add the first step because I'm going to put my students in a small group. And it just talks about my students will be placed in a small group. They will go to the vocabulary reinforcement activities, active learning tool, which is this. And if you scroll down, everything is here on the Take Charge Today lesson for you. You just have to make sure that you read it. But this is my Paycheck Basics vocabulary list, which the students will have access to this. And this is the template. Hold on. Wait a minute. All of the templates are on here. So let me see if I can find this template. All of my templates for this lesson plan are on here, and you can use them virtually, or you can also use them paper and pencil. So the template will look like this. And I did already download the template and put it in a Word document. I was trying to see if I could pull that up for you guys really quickly, but it is in here. And that's what it looks like. But for the sake of time, I'm just going to take you here so that you can see it right here. This is what the template looks like. And if you click on this, it'll take you to the download, which you can export into a Word document and put into Google Classroom or any of those other things so that your students can work on it online. And so I also provided a sample in my 5E lesson plan of this so that anybody can see that this is what the finished product should also look like. And the use of technology for this component, kids can create this, and I'm going to just drop that in there real quick. Students can create quiz cards on, we use Chromebook, so I'm going to say on Chromebook. And that Let me take that out. Quiz cards. They're little index cards. And so that's my technology piece. And I'm just going to add that there so that I identify that that's how I am infusing technology into this lesson. Okay. And that is my exploration piece. My students will take this template. I'm going to go over the instructions with them. We're going to discuss the vocabulary, and then they're going to work in small groups to create study quiz cards based on the terms that I have discussed. I hope that this will help you with the exploration piece of your 5E lesson plan. Okay, now we are in the middle of our 5E lesson plan, and we're going to take a look at explanation. So for this particular activity, and the time frame was pulled directly from the the lesson plan. It's going to be 5 minutes. I'm going to keep my kids in their small group. That's a teacher choice that I made. And the material that I will need for this is the agree or disagree worksheet, and each student will need a copy, which, because we're hybrid right now, I'm probably going to just put my copy right into the Google Classroom or Canvas if you're using Canvas. And so let's go take a look at the directions for this activity. So this is in the anticipatory set, and we're just going to go right here and take a look at the instructions, and it says provide each student with an agree or disagree worksheet. And then it says to instruct participants to complete before section by determining whether they agree or disagree with each statement. And after determining if they agree or disagree, they should explain why that choice was made. Now, this is a great opportunity for kids to kind of even discuss this and say, hey, what do you think, to their partners in their small group that they're working with? And then it says at the end of the lesson facilitation, which is the next block that we're going to fill in on our 5E lesson plan, we'll get a chance to go back and look at the after. So these are all my instructions for this particular activity right here. And I'm going to just copy once again and paste it right here. And it's just going to be some formatting that I'm going to have to do. Now, sometimes I like to leave the document section numbers in. Sometimes I don't. It depends on how I'm feeling. So today, I'm going to just leave it in this way because it does have them broken down into letter bullets, step A, B, and C. So I'm just going to put in here the word steps. So that'll kind of give me a direction to know that that's step A or step 1, 2, and 3, or, however you want to verbalize it. Those are just things, little details that you would put in. And I'm actually going to just move this down to the next block, which with 5E lesson planning, the lesson can get really long. So if you feel like it's getting long, don't freak out over it. Just try to cut out spaces where you can, like these sentences. When I brought them over, they just kind of fell down, but the information is there. And so these are the steps that I'm going to use, and that is pretty much it. If I want to identify what my depth of knowledge questioning would be here in TCT lessons, when you click here, it'll take you to where the assignment is. So it says a paper paycheck is the only way an employer may pay an employee. I might want to pull this or highlight that and identify that as a depth of knowledge question. And I would say that's a 3, because students have to really think, is it another way for an employee to get paid? And so I'm just going to identify that as a depth of knowledge question there. And I'm going to say it's a depth of knowledge question 3. And like I said, you can Google these and say, And even though that's not a question, it's a statement. Um, I don't know, you might want to give it some kind of quirky name, food for thoughts, statements, or something like that. Planning lessons quite often are creative things that teachers have to do to kind of think in terms of how can you capture the thought process of your um, student audience. So I'm going to call this essential thinking points. That's something I just made up just to put on there. But I feel like it's something that they have to think in terms of, do I agree with this? Do I not? And if so, why? And I'm going to just italicize that. And I may want to go through and pull all of the questions from that particular worksheet and do this too, because it does become a question. Why or why not? So they're answering a question that they got to really think about. And these are your critical thinking steps. And so just depending on, if I want to stay within the 5 minutes or branch off and, I got a 120-minute class, I have a little bit longer than, or 90-minute block, you can make the decision how long you want to make this activity. And that is the middle of the road with the 5E lesson plan. That is your explanation block. Okay, so now we are officially, getting ready to come to the end of our 5E lesson planning. And we are here at the elaboration component where you can do all of these really quirky kind of things, but it's more so the teaching guided practice component. So we are going to rely heavily on our PowerPoint presentation to engage students in different thinking concepts and thinking processes. And the really cool thing about Take Charge today is they will break down to you how to use each component of their slideshow. Now, sometimes I like to take their slideshow and mix it in with mine or hyperlink it together, but that is solely up to teacher creativity and teacher discretion. Or Take Charge today has created it in a way where you can just use their slides and you don't have to do your own slideshows. So that's really up to you. So this section will be quite lengthy if you do a cut and paste, which it's fine. If you decide to do a cut and paste, it's okay. Now this part also goes into conjunction with our explanation component. So we're currently using a worksheet that's called Agree or Disagree, which if you look at the explanation point, you will see that. And so once again, we're here. It's telling us how long we need and what our material is. And then it says present the paycheck to paycheck basics PowerPoint presentation. Now, I don't feel like I necessarily need to tell anybody all of these particular steps, but it may be some things that I may want to pull from here to highlight. That is up to you as to how you set this up. But this is 14 slides, and TCT has literally told you how to break down each component of that. So if you're getting observed, you may want to put all of that in there. If you're not, you may not necessarily want to put all of that in there. And if you're a teacher like me, you may want to, I don't know, break that thing down yourself. I'm a really creative type of person, so sometimes I like to do things myself. So this is a 30-minute component to go through all of those slides. And honestly, I would say that this becomes a whole class activity. And I'm just going to call it a whole class discussion. And I'm going to take this out. And I'm going to call this the teacher guided activity. So the key with 5E lesson planning is you want somebody to come in and look and see exactly what you're doing. And if you're teaching the same subject as another teacher, you guys are mirror images of each other. But it's okay if you want to do something creative. But typically with a 5E lesson plan, you are putting down step by step what you're discussing, what you're doing. So, and there are shorter versions of this so that you don't have to necessarily do that. So once again, we're going to do a cut and copy and paste. Oops. I'm sorry. It took me to the, I got to go back and do this again. Let's try this again. There. There we go. Copy. And I'm going to paste that there. I don't need that because I already have that there. And I'm going to take that number 1 out. And like I said, the biggest thing quite often with your 5E lesson planning, honestly, is formatting, cleaning it up so that it is legible and nice and neat. And people can follow through it. Okay. Now here I would have students taking notes, possibly in their journals, or they have a note-taking guide. If you didn't notice, I clicked on that and it went to the page for that. So students will be able to use this to take notes. And that is the template for that. Okay, like I said, Take Charge Today has all the templates in there for you. You don't have to look for them. You may have to export them to get them exactly to where you want them to be at, but they're there. Everything is there. And so now for this, I am just going to highlight this component. And I'm going to be picky and choosy today. So now I'm going to type in the words directions. Directions. Now, if this was a day that I was getting observed, I may copy and paste that whole thing in there. But today, for the sake of time, I'm just not going to do that. This is for my personal teaching. And, if anyone comes in, they will be able to see this is what my 5E lesson plan is today, or if I am collaboratively teaching with another teacher, everybody will be able to follow along. And so here, I'm going to go back to the lesson and we're just going to do some reviewing here. I'm going to take this section because I think it's really good. It's going back over the essential question, and it has some other really good speaking points. And I decided just to remove the bullets from there. And we're just going to figure out how to align that. And so this is just some of the things that we're going to add to this component. And like I said, I'm not going to go back into it and add every single piece, but I can go through and pull different things that I feel like are important for people to know. And then right here, I think it's important for them to know the reading a paycheck stub and personal information. So we're going to add that, describing gross income, because those were our vocabulary terms. And let's do that very quickly. And we're going to drop those in. Oops, take that back up. And I'm going to bullet this because I think that's an important piece. Let's see here. There we go. And so this is what we have for elaboration. It's a teacher presentation, and we're going to ask a series of questions. Present the paycheck basis PowerPoint, and conduct a whole class discussion. And then once again, if I wanted to be fancy, if I'm getting observed, or if I really wanted to provide a lot of details, I would put in exactly what questions I was asking exactly and the depth of knowledge levels that they were. And so that is going to be my elaboration component. And I may hyperlink in my PowerPoint presentation so that anyone that has access to this can quickly find the PowerPoint presentation and use it themselves, or be able to refer to the information that has been taught. And that is elaboration. So here we are, we're at the evaluation component, and it's the final step of the 5E lesson plan. And so my time approximate for this, and I did not take this from the lesson, but I gave myself 5 to 10 minutes. It is a whole class group, and I'm going to add from teacher guided. I'm going to take this to independent, because now this is getting into, did the students learn this independent student work. So we have some diversity as into how the students worked throughout this particular lesson. And we're referring back to the agree or disagree worksheet, which we started on in the explanation piece. So now I'm going to identify this as the before, teacher presentation, and we're going to identify this as the after teacher presentation. So now the students are doing the after. So that was the before, and this is the after. This is something that I just added as a personal note to myself, but if anybody were to come in, they would know that that is what this was. This was I think I know what this is. The teacher explained to me further or elaborated further as to what this is, and now I know that this is what this is. And so the directions came directly from the lesson plan here. Once again, another copy and paste. And this is where I changed the time because I added an exit ticket, and that was my choice. And the exit ticket that I added is a depth of knowledge level 1 question, which is a recall question. And since we went over net income and gross income, I just wanted to see if the students at least mastered what those two vocabulary terms were from this entire lesson that we did. among other things, but those two things were pretty important to know if you knew when you got your paycheck what is your net and your gross income. And so, as you can plainly see, that is how you do a 5E lesson plan. Of course, you would go here and add your information always. And this lesson was referred to, I believe, as Paycheck Basics. Paycheck Basics. And so I'm going to put my lesson title there, Paycheck Basics. And then I'm going to put the date. And I'm going to say this is a 60 to 90-minute lesson. And we're done. We have a 5E lesson plan all done, all typed up and ready to go to share with our collaborative planning or our informal or formal observation. Yes, it is 6 pages, and these lesson plans can get extremely long in this particular format. There are others that are shorter that are 5E, and I will show those to you in a later video, but I do hope that these help you to understand how to convert these lessons into a 5E lesson plan format.